Hello and welcome to my channel. Welcome to Story Junkie, which is what I am. My name is Elizabeth. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm really glad you're here because I read The Last One by Will Dean. Came out in August of 2023, so not even a year old. And I am going to tell you all about it. I'm going to start with as spoiler-free as I can do. Our main character, Caroline, Kaz for short, she and her boyfriend, beau, love interest, new flame, Pete, have booked tickets on a cruise, one of those cruises that takes you from London to New York. So, and it just crosses the ocean. And they're very excited, and they get on the ship and they get all settled. And the first morning she wakes up and there's nobody on the ship. There's nobody on the ship. She's alone. And I'm not going to really tell you anything beyond that. I mean, I'm going to tell you that things, you are told things that turn out to be not true. It's so full of twists and turns, and you're not sure who to trust and who not to trust, and you want to use your, human logic with it, right? Which you're trying to do along with the character. And it's because it could happen. The way that it is explained, it really could. Well, yeah, it really could happen, which makes it extra scary. So, but that's about all I can tell you without giving major things away. So if you are at all interested in hearing the story, or maybe you tried to read it and you couldn't get into it, or you've read it and you want a quick recap, whatever reason you are here to hear the story, I'm here to provide it. So join me for the ride. Okay, The Last One by Will Dean. We are on the ocean liner RMS Atlantica. Okay, like I said, Kaz and Pete, they get on the ship, they get settled, they go out to dinner, they have drinks, they go dancing, and that's Hobbes. Say hi, Hobbes. Yes, I know, you're very sweet. I know. Oh, very sweet. Sorry. So, they make new friends. It's a typical first night on a cruise. They make friends, they go out to dinner, they go dancing, they drink, they go home, they fall asleep. And like I said as much spoiler free as I could do, she wakes up the next morning, Pete's gone. She leaves her room. She realizes there's no one. There's no staff. There's no other passengers. This is really strange, right? Because she goes up to the deck and she sees that they are absolutely in the middle of the Atlantic. There is no land for her to see anywhere. So it's not like they docked somewhere and everyone got off and somehow she got missed. They're full steam ahead. This ship is moving. So she continues to look, because if you haven't been on a cruise, I've only ever been on one, so I'm nowhere near an expert, but they're kind of like floating cities, like floating neighborhoods, they are immense. So trying to search every little nook and cranny of this cruise ship is going to be really, really hard for her. But she's really smart. She heads to the bridge. There's no one there. That's where they, control the ship. But it's clearly the autopilot is working, right? And it's just okay. So she begins to worry about, okay, so what necessities do I need? I'm on the ship by myself. Is there the things I need to survive if I'm on this ship by myself? And so she starts to head down to through the staff areas to see if she can get to the food stores and figure out what's on the ship and what the ship might be stocked with. So she heads down and she runs into someone else. Oh, thank God. His name is Daniel. He's American. He's actually Korean American. And he is an outdoorsy guy. And he's one of those nomad type people. He teaches, skiing, winter downhill skiing, like in the winter, and in the summer he's, just living out of his van, and he's one of those floating about the world kind of guys. And they meet, and they're both just super, super excited to find each other. So thrilled that they're not the absolute last person on the cruise. So the two of them get together and decide that they should continue to look and see if they can't find anyone else. There's a little bit of hope that there might be some other people. And the library, I believe, is where they find Franny. So the next person that they find is Francine. She goes by Franny. As Kaz is walking over to her, she sort of makes herself a little fort, and she's reading. And at first she's like, oh my God, there's a young girl. She's like 14, 15. Okay, wait, maybe she's 16 or 17. Okay, maybe she's 18. And she says that she's freaking out because her parents aren't on the ship anymore, and she couldn't find anyone, and now she's glad that there are other people, but like, what the hell is going on? And she's trying to read up on what's up about this ship, and trying to figure out, you could tell she's suffers from serious anxiety. They sort of get some information out of her, and they start to think like, this girl must be young. She's on a vacation with her parents, and she says she's 21 and that they should back off. She's not a child. She just is close with her parents, and they're still going on family vacations. She's just really lucky, So, so now we have 3 people. And finally, they head to where the shops are. There's, like I said, it's like a floating neighborhood, city sort of. So there's a whole like shopping plaza area, and there's usually some very high-end shopping that can be done on the ships. And there's a guy in the jewelry slash watch store, and he's smashing open all of the displays and pulling out the best watches and putting them on his wrists. And that's how we first meet Smith. He says, people call him Smith. He goes by Smith. They don't need any other name by him. He's in his like early 60s, late 50s, early 60s. I didn't tell you. Cass and Pete are like early 40s. And Daniel is like late 20s. So now we have these 4 people, and we meet Smith, and he's at first I thought he was like a total snob that had like all this money, but it's not that he has so much money. It's that he and his friend spent a great deal of money on these tickets, and they know exactly how hard they worked to get that money. And so he's going to get his money's worth out of this trip that he paid all this money for. So we first find him, he's grabbing all of these watches. He's like, well, this is the beginning of the repayment, because what is going on? And so now that they've decided it's the 4 of them, there's going to be these 4 people stuck on the ship. What's going on? And we find out that Kaz runs a cafe back in her hometown. And so she instantly decides it's time to feed everyone. And I think Franny at one point is like, you're not our mom. And she's like, that has nothing to do with anything. I am someone who feeds people. And I know that it's really, really important that we eat. When crazy events happen, sometimes we forget to do the basic things. Drink water, eat food, these are important things. So she takes them down to the kitchen. She makes them food. It's very sweet. They start to get to know each other. They drink water. Smith is drinking, the most expensive alcohol he can get his hands on, and getting as drunk as possible because, again, he's trying to get his money's worth out of it. They talk about their situation, and they decide, we have food for thousands of people for a week. We have water for that many. There's desalination machines in the basement. Like we're okay. We really are okay. Like the ships like this, they literally pilot themselves. They sense something in the water. They sense a storm, and they turn without any human interference. Like they can literally drive themselves. We are okay. We're going to be okay. It's very strange. We're very interested to see how this happened, but we're not alone. We've got food. We've got water. We've got heat. We've got the basic things that we need. And they all end up the next day, pretty early on in the day, the electricity goes out on the entire ship. Now, what does that mean? Because, like, on dry land, you still have water. I mean, your pipes still work, but on a ship, no, you need electricity for the faucets to work. You know, you can usually get like one flush out of your toilets, you know, when the electricity goes out, or more if you just pour water in them, right? It doesn't really need electricity; it just needs water. That's not the way on ships. On ships, it's this suction mechanism. So, like, now those aren't working, and Cass gets this very, very scary thought and goes running down to the food stores and realizes they have all been closed by electronic doors that cannot be mashed open, cannot be smashed. There's no, like, they do not have the strength or the ability or the battering rams needed to get to where the food is. This is bad. So they decide that they need to start just, what can they find? You know, there are restaurants around. Is there stuff in the restaurants? There are bars around. Do the bars have food? Are there lemons and limes and salty nuts around? Because that's the kind of thing you have in a bar. You know, like, are there water bottles around? Like, what is there? And they manage to get coffee and tea packets. They find sugar packets, sweet and low packets. They do find some like salty nuts and other snacks from the bars. And they find a few water bottles with like a little bit of water left in them. But not like you would think that like there'd be a case behind the bar at least, if not like 5 cases. But no, it's not there. So they find plenty of alcohol, of course. And they start to realize that they are in the mid-Atlantic. The North Mid-Atlantic. They need heat, and there isn't any. That's not good. So they find a part of the deck that has, that's like metal, and so it's like they set fires there. They're not going to set fire to the ship. So the way that it's explained, it's like the one area that has this like metal around it. So that's where they decide to set their fires. They clean themselves in the swimming pool, because what else do they have? So they basically discover that the rooms, the bars are basically empty. The restaurants are basically empty. All of the places that they can get to are empty, and every single room that was open was unlocked because of whatever mechanism unlocked all the rooms. They now are locked. Like, they can't get into any of the rooms either. So like a room that would have been stocked with a mini bar or a small kitchen or something, like they can't access any of that. So their water, their food, their heat, it's gone. And they begin to hear dripping water, which is a very disturbing thing to hear on a boat, right? You don't want dripping water. The water should be outside and not dripping. And they discovered that the dripping is coming from what's left over of the ice sculpture from the first day, from when they first got on. And there's, it has melted away, and it has left on it a box that says, "Do not open." Okay. Later on, they hear a piano playing. And they're like, "Oh, there's someone else in the ship. Oh my gosh." You know, it's probably been like a couple of nights by this point. You know, and they're getting pretty hungry, and they've rationed what little things they have, but so then they hear this piano playing, and they think, "Oh my goodness, there's a 5th person. This is amazing." So they head to the room and the piano is playing, and they realize that it is a player piano. But the room that it's brought them to, it has a monitor that, as they start to like head over to the piano, the monitor turns on, and it's just what they describe as like the bottom half of a beautiful lady's face. But like, it's literally just like her mouth, you know, and that she has like the perfect white teeth, and she has like the perfectly made up red lips. And she introduces herself as the Admiral, and she tells them that they're being filmed, that they are a part of a new reality show. She tells them that they will have the opportunity to ask her one question per person per day at 6 p.m. every day. And they're told that there are just countless cameras all over the ship. We can see everything you're doing. And she also says, the first episode has aired, and the game will begin when someone opens up the box. The box that says, "Do not open." So they decide that they're not opening the box, and because, they're frantic, they're terrified. None of them signed up for a reality show. None of them signed up to do something with... You can't just do this. Like, you have to get permission and signatures, and there are channels and legalities. They continue searching the ship because really that's like what they need to figure out is like what's on the ship. And in one of the lower levels, they find a kennel that's filled with dogs. And Franny's like, this is weird, because if the people who were on the ship with us got off at some point, why didn't they take their dogs? Like, why are their dogs still here? Family pets they're members of the family. That's why people take them with them. No one leaves their animals, and the weather starts to turn, so they start to set up, which is really a good thing. It means it's going to rain. They start setting up like everything they can get their hands on to catch the rainwater. Daniel does his best to teach them how to try to use their own body heat to stay warm, and how it's all about insulation, and it's about trapping your own heat within whatever blankets you have. And he finds some furs and some things that like don't breathe as much, so therefore they'll stay warmer. And this is the first time that we see that Kaz is already suffering from PTSD, because the next morning she wakes up and she can't find Franny, and she's convinced that she's gone, that everyone's gone again. Only for her to just like find her brushing her teeth in the bathroom. Like, she's fine. She didn't go anywhere. She's just in the bathroom. But I think it's a really important moment because it's the beginning. At 6:00, the Admiral appears, and they've started calling her Lips, which I think is hilarious because that's all she is Lips. So they ask their questions. Franny says, "What is this show?" And she tells them, you're the 4 remaining passengers on the ship RMS Atlantica that is on its way to New York City. All you have to do is sit back and enjoy. By the time you get to New York City, one person will be crowned winner, and, have fun. So Daniel says, "Well, what do we stand to win?" He said, "The winner of the voyage will receive $5 million, and the other survivors of the game will win a participation fee of $50,000. Kaz says, "How can we win?" And at that point, she explains that there will be 4 challenges, one for each of them: mind, body, air, water. Anyone who does not complete their challenge is no longer eligible for the grand prize or the participation award, but they have to remain on the boat. They're not getting off this ship. They're staying on the ship. This is the point where she says, "If you would like to go, you tell me now, and we will get you removed from the ship." They talk about it, and they think about it, and they think about it, and they talk about it, but each of them has a reason why they need that money. And Kaz's reason, because she's our main character, we see everything through her eyes. It turns out that, well, at home, she's left at home her sister, who is raising 2 children, and she's finally gotten her sister away from this horrible parasite of a man who she used to be married to. And their mother is suffering from major memory issues. I don't remember if it was like specifically Alzheimer's or if it was just dementia, but it's memory issues. And their father has chosen to unalive himself because of the crippling gamble addiction he has, and that he literally like lost all of the family's money, including like both of the girls' like little checking accounts that were opened when they were 8. You know what I mean? So when they were 18, there'd be some money gone. And left them with major debt. So that's the reason why she's like, I can't leave. I have to try to save the family. So there's only one question left, and Smith asks, and they're like, the three of them are thinking, oh my God, I can't believe we left Smith to ask the last question, because we had agreed that somebody would ask about food and water. And what does Smith ask about? Are the winnings tax-free? Ugh. Sorry. She says, that's something you're going to have to talk to your accountant about. I can't answer that for you. Sorry. But that's your question. So she says to them, you have 10 minutes to decide who's going to do which challenge. I'm not telling you. I literally are telling you that they are mind, body, air, and water. Which one's doing which one? And they have this whole discussion. They decide that Cass is going to do water. Franny's going to do air. Daniel's going to do body, and Smith will do mind. And they head back to their room, and they're like, they barely get to their little duplexes again when the foghorn blows, which is the signal that they have to go. They have to be back in front of the monitor for the challenge. So the first challenge is mind, and that's Smith, and it's a solo challenge, so he has to do it alone, and it's in the library. But he's in the library, and there's like a room next to it that they can watch through, but it's completely soundproof, so they can't help, even though they figure out the puzzle. And it's like a crossword puzzle with like one or two letters, and I think maybe there's only one letter in it. It's the X of, and he has to figure out like what the puzzle is, but there's no clues. And there's a sand timer and at the top of it, and it's already running, so that's his time. And at the top of it, it says X marks the spot, and he discovers that there's a bunch of books with bookmarks. He pulls out all the books with bookmarks. At this point, Franny's already got figured out that it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. But he does manage to figure out that it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, but then that's not the answer, because, and he, and the whole time he's like, I am not a reader. This is not my kind of thing. I can't believe this is the thing you guys are making me do. And when it's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, he's like, oh God, and this is one I read, and there's an answer. There's like an answer in the book. And he has to like flip through it and try to find it, and he does. And he's like, 42. And if you've read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which I hope that you have, and if you haven't, I'm sorry if I ruined that part for you. But the answer is 42. They congratulate him, and they say, follow the answer for your reward. So they try to find room 42. They can't find room 42. So they end up in the the staff area and then the maintenance area, and there's a maintenance closet called 42, and there's 6 boxes in there. So, and their initials are on each. So Smith opens his book and his box, and he finds a bunch of papers, and he's like, what the hell is this? Franny's has olives and lemons. Daniel has a fishing net. And Kaz has water, 6 small bottles of water and 6 small bottles of tonic water. The other 2 boxes have 6 pairs of red wool socks and 6 red fire blankets. So, first of all, they think, well, maybe there's supposed to be 6 of us and not just 4 of us. And Smith says, well, we're going to have some drinks, because obviously that's what they want us to do with olives and lemons and tonic water. There's plenty of alcohol on the ship. The next day, after another night of sleeping, whatever, next day, they're screaming. They realize it's Daniel, and he's caught a fish. So Kaz is able to cook them this beautiful, delicious, fresh fish, and it's wonderful, and they're so happy. And after they are sufficiently fed, the foghorn goes off, and they go, of course, to the monitor. It says water. It's Kaz. They say that this is a group challenge, and the group, while they're needed for her to succeed, they don't have to help. Great. But there's a hatch that like the pilot can go in and out of that's only like 10 feet from like the water level. So because like all the decks are so high up that if you were to jump off of one of those, it's like a 10-story drop, and water is like concrete at that height. Like, it's not good. So this is like a much lower hatch to get out of the ship from like without using gangplanks and whatnot. And she is directed down to that hatch, and she is told that she has to jump into the water, the Atlantic Ocean, the North Mid-Atlantic Ocean, next to an ocean liner. I mean, just this part, I was like, I'm done. No, I'm done. There's no way. And behind her, there are two separate spots where there are pontoon boats. And the other people can help her and get her back into the ship. So all she has to do is jump out the hatch and get back in the ship. But the first two, Franny and Daniel, are on the first pontoon, and they try to get her, and they try to get her, and they try to get her, and they miss. So it's up to Smith by himself on a pontoon. But he's helping. I was just like thrilled he was helping. And he like throws out a rope to her, and he can't pull her in, and so he throws Daniel's net out to her, and she manages to wrap herself in it, and she's like, this is great, because then they can pull me in, and I'm like tied to it, I'm not going to get out of here. But the Smith cannot pull her in. He's not strong enough. She's completely sodden. The net is completely sodden, and the ship is moving like at a quick speed. Like there's the pull of the water, like he can't do it. And he's literally screaming like, somebody needs to help me, somebody needs to help me. And that's when the other two show up, and they manage to haul her in. And by the time they get her in, she is so cold that they have to do that thing where you warm up the core temperature, body temperature, because if the blood from your extremities come back to your heart too quickly, it can cause shock because of how cold you are. And it's a crazy thing. And the two of them like peel her clothes off of her and take their clothes off, like not all of them completely, but like enough so that there's like skin contact and they can warm her up from the core out. Like that's really the only safe way to do it. And it's very impressive that they know how to do that, I have to say. She says to herself, there was no safety ship out there. There was nothing to catch me if they missed me. I would have just been left in the mid-Atlantic, in the middle of the mid-Atlantic by myself. In the middle of the ocean. I've mentioned this before, but I happen to have something called thalassophobia, which is a fear of deep, dark water, which is something that makes many people uncomfortable. But when I say I have a phobia, I mean like if I have to deal with deep, dark water, I break. I can't breathe right, and I hyperventilate, and I can't think straight. Like my brain breaks. So this story is like extra scary for me. And she talks about how, I could totally relate to this. She talks about how like surface swimming is just fine. She's okay to surface swim as long as she's not really thinking about like the fact that there's miles of water beneath her. And sorry, like I said, it little breaks me. But I can understand that, that just total fear of there's so much underneath you, and there you can't see any of it, and you don't know what's there, but there's lots, and it's whew. They managed to warm her up, and they have her rest, right? And they wake her up about 20 minutes before 6 o'clock because it's time for another set of questions. And Franny says to her, "Oh my God, I'm so glad your lips aren't blue anymore. You were really scaring me." So congratulate Kaz, and they invite all of them to a to a formal dinner, where the men will be expected to wear tuxedos and the women will be expected to wear floor-length gowns. And it begins at 7, and we'll see you there. Do you have any questions for today? And Kaz freaks out. She's like, I am done. I'm not playing this game anymore. I'm not jumping through your hoops anymore. Open the food stores. I need food. I need water. I need, And she doesn't get anywhere with Lips. Lips is just like, does anyone have any questions? So Daniel asks, how are you able to do this without our consent? And that's when she's told, you gave consent on your tickets. You signed the paperwork. The paperwork that you signed to be on this cruise included a consent to participate. We have complete contractual terms. You have signed what needed to be signed. And I mean, how many times do we click, I agree, on those things and don't read through them? Oh my God. Terrifying. Kaz then asks would I really have been left out there all alone in the Atlantic by myself? And Lips's answer is so infuriating. She says, oh, Kaz, you're never alone when you're in the Atlantic. The amount of sea creatures, the whales, the plankton, the squid. That's the answer she gets. You're never alone in the Atlantic. Franny asks what direction they're going in. She says, I think southwesterly, because they keep turning. And this is when they start to figure out that they're probably just going in circles so that they stay in the mid-North Atlantic. Smith says, of the four of us who opened the box, Daniel tries to get Lips not to answer, and that's when Lips says Francine. Smith and Daniel are both shocked. And Franny denies. She says, I wouldn't have done this. And they don't trust her, and everyone's upset with her. And at this point, Lips says, you only have 45 minutes to get ready for the gala dinner. Aren't you gonna go get ready? So they go, and they put on their dresses, and they put on their tuxedo. She talks about how, like, haggard they look. Like, no one has had proper food in probably a week now, right? They've been through major stressful things. Like, they're looking gaunt and sunken and sallow. And, like, it's just, yeah, they're in tuxedos and dresses, but they don't look fancy or whatever. Anyway, they get down to, where they say that the dinner is going to be served. It's in, like, gold platinum dining room 2 or something. And they sit down at the table that has under the spotlight, and they realize that there's things under the table. There are 3 refrigerators under the table, and there's an order to which they're supposed to open them, and they decide that they should probably follow the rules because they don't want, like, the refrigerators, like, locking on them or something. So in the very first fridge, the first thing they find is champagne. At this point, Smith thanks Franny for opening the box because this is the best champagne that there is on the planet, and Franny's like, I didn't open the box, he's just a jerk. So they drink the champagne. It's absolutely delicious. So then they have their first course. Their first course is, it's in boxes, and there's a bunch of bowls, and I think Kaz opens it up, and it's mini bellinis, caviar, sour cream, chopped chives, and hard-boiled eggs. So they absolutely love it. Kaz is like, oh my god, I've never had caviar, but I'm gonna have it again. And after they finish their opening course, they go to the second course, which is supposed to be the main course fridge, and there's a bottle of white wine. There is no water. There's a bottle of white wine. It's a very good bottle of wine, as Smith tells us. There are, it has duck roulets. I'm not very good at French. There's watercress salad. There's Roquefort cheese, sourdough bread, and quince jelly. Kaz is like, whatever, I'm hungry. I'm going to eat this duck, right? Takes the first bite of duck, spits it out, and is like, oh my God, this is completely inedible because it is 80% salt. It's literally unedible. Everybody else tries it. Yes, it's terrible. They can't, the seasoning is off. It's not good. Then Smith's too, and he starts coughing, and he passes out on the table. And Kaz's vision starts to go blurry, and Franny says, I don't feel right. Kaz says, and everything goes black. When they regain consciousness, they are in the dark. And she tries to get the attention of the other people, and they manage to talk, like, she can hear Daniel and Franny, but Smith isn't awake, and they try to get Smith awake. And as they're trying to figure out where Smith is, something scurries across Kaz's foot. Something scurries. And they start hearing, like, squeaking, like rodents, like, rats. Like, they're described as having butcher knife length tails. That's not a small rat. Anyway, they managed to get Smith awake. He vomits when he wakes up, and then he sees the rats, and then he vomits again. I don't remember where the light comes from, but there is light at this point. They decide that they need to run out of this room. They run out of the room. Franny realizes that they've left one of the refrigerators, never looked in. So she runs back in to get the food, runs back out, and all that's in her hand is a piece of paper. And the piece of paper says, "Dessert is for passengers who finish their main course." They're so pissed. They're so pissed. I'm so pissed for them. I mean, they're so hungry. Cass went through so much, and she never even got any water. God. And at this point, Smith remembers the watches. That he was smashing up the jewelry displays, grabbing all these watches. Well, there's a watch over there that literally has an emergency beacon in it. Like, you can set this thing off to be an emergency beacon, and it will set off what you need, and someone will come. It's like meant for like climbers, right? People who, do 100-mile runs in Alaska or climb up crazy mountains, so that they, worst comes to worst, if they need to set out this beacon, they can. So he runs to get this watch, and there's a lot of discussion about whether they should use it, they shouldn't use it. If they use it, will that mean that they won't be able to win the prize? If they set it off, maybe, that they set it off and the ones who want to leave can leave, but the other ones can stay and finish the challenge. And, there's just there's always this discussion. And Smith is always trying to figure out how he's going to get the $5 million, right? That's what worries him. So as a group, they decide that they're going to put the watch on the leg of the piano that's next to the monitor that they go to at 6 o'clock. And so that not one person has it, and they'll leave it there, and there has to be at least 2 people who have decided to deploy it. This is the agreement that they make. So at this point, there's a lot that they're trying to figure out. But another one of the things that they figure out at this point is to let half of the dogs out of the kennels to take care of the rodent problem that they're having now, because there are literally like rats all over the ship. And so they let the dogs go, and they go back to the monitor room, piano room, what have you. And they realize that the beacon has been deployed. They run back up to the deck, and they see that there is a ship, a boat, on its way to them, like with lights, a rescue. Like it's a trawler, and it's heading towards them, and it's getting closer and closer. And as it heads towards them, they realize it's on fire. It's on fire, and they watch it sink. And they're like, oh my God, we asked for help, but we're not allowed to have help. So the people that were coming to help us were just killed. I mean, that's got to be what just happened, right? At this point, they realize they cannot even get emergency help. Smith throws the watch into the ocean. He's so aggravated, and the horn blows. Now it's Body, Daniel. So it's a solo challenge, and the weather is still not very good. It's like misty, rainy, outside, and he has to go to the rock wall, climb it vertically, and then there's a horizontal part where he has to grab hold of like little crevices, and within one of the crevices up there is a handle that he can pull down and then zip line from there into the swimming pool. When he gets into the swimming pool, he has to find the key card that's at the bottom of the swimming pool, come back up, and that's the key card that will give them his reward for finishing his challenge. So, and like a couple of things happen on his way that like really mess with him. Like he steps onto one of the climbing wall things, and like a nail goes through his foot. It's just bad. So he gets like slowed down. He probably doesn't cross as quickly as when he dives into the water and he heads towards the key. The pool cover starts to close, and this pool cover doubles as a dance floor, so it is very, very strong, right? So like they're watching the monitors, and when he gets back up to the top of the pool cover, the screen goes black and it says, "This content for top tier subscribers only," and the 3 of them totally freak out. They're like, oh my God, we're watching the footage. Daniel just died. Like, Daniel just died. we just watched him die. Like, everything changes. There is no witty banter. There is no Smith trying to be obnoxious. It is just horrifying for the three of them. And at 3 a.m., they're literally still in this monitor room. Franny has fallen asleep. She's cried herself to sleep on Kaz's lap. And the two of them decide that they're going to help Daniel's family, that no matter who wins, we're going to somehow get some money to Daniel's family. Daniel had a fiance and a daughter, and they want to help them. It's very sweet. The next morning, they're still in the monitor room, but at 10 a.m., the door opens. They run to the pool. There's no way that they can get the lid up or anything. Someone comes walking down the stairs. It slips. It's the Admiral. She's terrified. She looks way better than they do because she's been fed and she's dressed nice and she's clean and whatnot. And she introduces herself as Michelle, and she says, I've been on board the whole time. I was on this zero deck. I had a cabin with an exercise area and a studio and a small little, like, kitchenette and, like, living space. It wasn't on any of the maps. You would never have found me. They start peppering her with questions. So is it over? Is Daniel okay? When will we be in New York? And she's like, I honestly don't know. Like, I really don't know. She was hired to be a host on a reality show. And all expense paid during the actual show. And she's received half of her payment, only half. Tells them that there were supposed to be 6 of them, but 2 people woke up who weren't supposed to, and were supposed to be contestants. So that's why there's only 4 of them. That's why there were 6 boxes in the maintenance room. And she says, she never in a million years then thought that she would ever be put in as a contestant. But what happened was that they said, we're doing routine maintenance to your cabins. Please exit. And 20 minutes later, she was supposed to be let back in, and they made an announcement that said, you are now a contestant. Please join the rest of them on the deck. And what she does tell them is what she knows. And what she knows is that the show is being streamed in real time. Like, people are watching us right this second, doing this very thing this second. And that the first episode went out over YouTube for free, and then this whole thing took off. Like, it is so more interactive than you realize. The viewers are are completely in charge of what happens to them. They are the ones that lock the doors. They're the ones that turned off the heat. They're the ones that turned out the lights. They're the ones that it's all audience driven. And she never thought that this was ever going to, include her, or that it would ever go this way. Franny just keeps asking about Daniel. How's Daniel? Is Daniel okay? And Michelle says that some of the viewers tried to, like, zoom in and see if there was some sort of escape hatch in the pool, but they couldn't find one. And Michelle wasn't aware of them finding one. But she does know that this production company is brand new. This is their first thing. And this watching interactively it's virtual. The people who are streaming can not literally, but they can walk down the corridors or sit next to the contestant. I mean, they're not really, it's virtual, but it looks like they're doing that. And I was like, you know what? We need to take a walk together. Everyone come with me. We're taking a walk. And she grabs a blanket, one of the fire blankets, and takes them to the engine room and puts them under the blanket so that, like, the blanket is covering all 4 of them, and they're in the engine room, which is really loud. And she says, we can hear everything. Everyone can hear everything that you guys say all the time. And if you're ever in a position where we can't hear you because of the storm being too loud or the piano being too loud or for whatever reason, they have lip readers. So there's no such thing as having a private conversation. So she takes them to the engine room where it's really, really loud. And if they speak in a whisper underneath the blanket, they can have a private conversation. Michelle tells them that they were picked because they were all considered good people, but also for some reason had something going on in their past that would push them to want to stay in the challenge and win the $5 million. And this is when she drops the bombshell, because the whole time they're like, well, if this is a show, then there's a broadcasting network that's, like, in charge of this, and they can't actually hurt us. They can't actually put us in danger. Like, that's not allowed. There's regulations. You can't, you know. And that's when Michelle tells them that the show is only available on the dark web. Uh-oh. So the dark web is fully uncensored, completely. I mean, and this is like a pay-per-view thing, right? So, and they're paying through encrypted currency, so nobody knows who's buying, and it is just like, it's like a revolution of a show, right? And it's all real. And she didn't realize how real it was. Michelle says she doesn't realize how real it was until now, and that metrics are everything, and they just keep going further and further and further. And there were 300 million viewers the episode where Daniel died, which of course makes Franny freak out. Daniel's dead. And she's like, no, I'm just saying, like, that's what they made it seem like. So Smith asks if it's going to end. Like, will it end? Like, if there's no broadcasting authority, where's the, legal ramifications here? They can do any illegal, immoral thing that they want. And the working theory that they have is that people, that there's like a global conspiracy that more people should be on the dark web, right? And this is one of the ways that they can get people in. Like, this is something you might want to watch on the dark web. Ooh, now I'm on the dark web. So what they're realizing is that they kept thinking that there was some sort of authority that was like in charge of them and would keep them safe, but there isn't. Like, can they even survive? Like, what happens when the ship runs out of gas? Like, is this like, what is this? And Michelle says that authorities should really have seen what happened with Daniel, and shouldn't they be like on their way to like help save and rescue us, right? This is when she asks them if they've ever heard of a red room. So the red rooms on the dark web are where you can pay money, allegedly, the rumor has it, you can pay money to watch someone be unalived, live. And so she explains what these are, and she says, the episode where Daniel didn't make it out of the pool was streamed through a red room. And they're like, well, but that's really bad, right? And Michelle says, I think this entire show is going out in a red room. Oh, not good. So then she starts to tell them about all the things on the ship that are basically dummies or rigged to not work. So she says that there are life preservers that are rigged not to work. There are none of the lifeboats will work. None of them are stocked with any of the things that you would expect a lifeboat to be stocked with. Like, things that they would think would be life-saving don't work right. Fire extinguishers, for instance. And at this point, Michelle tells them that Franny is not the one who opened the box. Foghorn goes again. Final challenge, Franny, air. Computer voice starts to speak. It says it's a solo challenge. Franny is going to go to the top level. She is going to go to the base of the mast. She's going to climb the external ladder that goes, it goes to about a third up, and then it turns. So she has to turn around the mast and then go up the rest of the way. The top is the key card, and then she has to grab that, come all the way back down the ladder, do the turn again, come back down the ladder, and then that key will open the room to the reward. Franny says to the computer, I nominate Kaz to do it. Kaz is gobsmacked. I was gobsmacked. What? This woman has been taking care of you like she is your mother, and you just threw her under the bus? And Franny's like, I'm sorry, I didn't know what to do, but I know I couldn't do it, and I know you can. And Kaz is like, get away from me. So, of course, she has to do it. And, of course, it's raining and it's windy. And at the top of the mast, she's at 190 feet above sea level. I mean, it's just terrifying and horrifying. And halfway up, she realizes that some of the rungs have been greased, of course, right? But she does make it. She makes it up. She makes it back down. And she finds Smith and Michelle. They're both really proud of her. They're so happy for her. She doesn't see Franny. She's looking for Franny. Where's Franny? Where's Franny? She goes running out to the deck and sees Franny standing on the railing. and Kaz starts screaming. And Franny steps off. And Kaz watches her fall beneath a wave. And the three of them start throwing life preservers into the ocean, hoping that there'll be enough that she can grab a hold of one, or that ships will see them and stop, and get her and help her. And they are so utterly defeated when this is all over. I mean, it's just, ugh. They head to the room that the key will open. There are 4 bottles of water. There are 16 packs of instant noodles, rations for 4 people, even though there's only 3 left. They have this really interesting conversation about the anchor and how there's no way that the anchor on the boat could possibly be 2 miles long to be able to hit the bottom of the ocean floor and stop them. And they discuss the anchor because Michelle brings it up and gets them to the bridge, right? So they're discussing the anchor in the bridge room when there's some crackling, and they hear, we've received your distress call. Are you in need of assistance? They're like, oh my God. I mean, the fact that we're here when this is happening, this is amazing. And they try to get a hold of them and signal back and Mayday and SOS, and they can't be heard. It doesn't matter what they try to say or what they say it into. They literally cannot be heard by these people. And all of a sudden they hear a voice say, thank you for responding to our call. This is the captain of the RMS Atlantica, and we are just fine. We ran a test of our safety system, and we're thrilled to hear that it worked, and we really appreciate you getting a hold of us, but we're fine, so you go ahead and take care. Smith is like, Michelle, you knew about this. That's why we're here, right? Kaz says, did you really open the box? And Smith says, I am not explaining myself. So that's all we get in terms of like who opened the box and why. He simply says, I'm not explaining myself. They go back down to take care of the dogs again, and they discover that the front part of the ship is on fire. Okay, and they can't get close enough to get any water on it. Like if they throw water at it, the water is vapor before it even gets to the fire. A fire extinguisher, and they start to use it, and like an oil comes out of it, not fire extinguisher spray. So they think that they hear a sound in the background, and they go running up to the deck, and it's a helicopter. And Smith and Kaz get up there after Michelle. Michelle gets up there first. And they can see that she's already in the basket that the helicopter has sent down, and she's already getting lifted up, and they watch her get into the helicopter, and the basket comes back down, and the helicopter can't quite stay stable, and it goes away, and it comes back, and it goes away, and it comes back, and it goes away, and it stays away. And their hearts sink. But then they realize that the fire's out, that some sort of sprinkler system came on and made the fire go out. And they think that the distraction of the helicopter was like part of it, and that Michelle must have been in on this. Like everything she said was awful. So at this point, Kaz says she's done. She's going to be as boring as she can possibly be. She doesn't want to be entertaining to anyone anymore. She's done. She is getting under blankets in her little duplex, and she is not leaving until somebody comes and gets her. And she's done. She's not putting out pans to get any more water. She's not scavenging for any more food. She's not leaving the duplex. She's going to be boring. And Smith gives her a look. She's like, what? Put something in her hand. Michelle has left them a key. It's a key to the ballroom. The ballroom, which they were told even before getting on the ship, was closed for construction. That they were laying a new dance floor, and that's not a space that's going to be used in this particular trip. They start whispering to each other. I guess we should check the ballroom. Cass is like, but I said I wasn't doing any of it anymore. Kaz says, we're going to sleep on it. We're not doing this right away. We're not jumping through their hoops. But the next day, they wake up to music playing. It's a waltz, and they head towards the sound, and the emergency lights start coming on, and they're guiding them to the ballroom. So the fire alarm starts to go off again. All the lights are flashing and heading them towards the ballroom. And when they get there, they realize like it's hermetically sealed, like it's completely sealed. But they do have the key. So they open it up, and they get hit with this terrible smell. And there's a mound of, no, no, a mountain of bodies with limbs laying in awkward positions. There is death everywhere. She recognizes the purser in his outfit. There's, there's cuts, things are moving. Oh my God, the rats are in there. Oh my God, the rats are in there. And so are some of the dogs. They're feasting. They run out of the ballroom, and Smith's reaction is, "I didn't see that. I definitely did not see that. That's not something I saw. I didn't see that." That's a fair reaction, Smith. Totally get that. And that's when Kaz says, "Pete's in that room. Smith's friend John is in that room. Franny's parents are in that room. That's why those weren't the people who called us and left us messages. They couldn't have." As if they weren't already broken. They are broken. They realize not only can they not win, they probably can't survive. Okay? And this is when Kaz says, "Wait a minute. If a helicopter came here, we've got to be closer to land than we think, because helicopters don't fly out into the middle of the mid-Atlantic." So, and Kaz is like, "I need to get off this ship." She's like, "I am jumping in. She starts tying together life preservers and filling plastic bags with air and sealing them so that they float, and putting they have Michelle's cell phone. That's what they still have. They still have Michelle's cell phone. They put that in a plastic bag. They take Franny's note to her parents. They collect as much drinking water as they have, and they start tying together these life jackets. And she starts to explain how they need to get off the ship. This needs to be over. This needs to be the end of it. And maybe they can float to land. They're close enough to land that they can get there. And he tries to convince Smith that, yes, it's a 10-story jump, and even though, yes, it's going to feel, like on the bottom of your feet, it'll probably feel like concrete, but we're going to make it. It is water. We'll be okay. And when Smith starts to, they're like, "We're going to do this together," and Smith doesn't go with her, and she's like hanging on from one side, and she says to him, "What's your name?" Remember, he never told them his first name. And he's like, "I go by," and she's like, "Stop. I know full well that you go by Smith. But I need to know what your name is. What is your name?" And he says, "My name is Walter." They cling on each other at the railing. She convinces him to jump. She says, "This is our only way to control our destiny. This is it. This is the only thing left we have to do that is in our control." And she says, "And after we survive, we will sue them for every penny they have," appealing to Smith. And they fall. They step off and they fall silently, and they land. And the impact is so intense that they can't hang on to each other, and they lose each other's hands. Cold water goes up her nose. She's looking for Smith. She's yelling. She can't see him. And then she sees his hands, and they fall beneath the water. And she's like, how could that... Oh my God, the life preservers. Michelle said that they weren't trustworthy. He must have gotten ones that were weighted instead of buoyant. And things start popping up around her. His life jacket, not his life jacket, the water bottles, the cell phone, the things that he put in the plastic that were to float. Those start popping up around her. And she searches the empty space around her, and she realizes that it's quiet. The ship's engines have turned off, but she's sort of floating away from the ship, but she has to keep an eye on it because she's in the middle of nothing. And the only way that she can sort of keep her sanity is to keep an eye on the ship. She thinks about her dad. She thinks about her mom. She thinks about Gemma. And the cell phone starts to ring. She manages to get it out of the plastic bag and keep it above the water. She answers it, and a voice says to her, "Congratulations, you've won." It's like she doesn't even hear that. She just screams for help. I'm in the middle of the North Atlantic. help me. I need help. I need help. Someone needs to help me. Like, what are you doing? Congratulating me. And they're like, Caroline, turn around, turn around, turn around. She can't, like, because of the life preserver, she can't, like, get herself around. But she finally turns around and she sees there's all these lights on the horizon, and there's all these boats, and there's one that's like heading towards her super fast, and it is heading right towards her. And they pull her onto this ship, and they start heading back to the RMS Atlantica, and she freaks out. She's like, do not bring me back to that boat. I'm not having anything to do with that boat. And they're like, look, look, look. And that's when she sees Michelle on the ship waving. And then Walter walks up next to Michelle and starts to wave. Kaz passes out. They get her on the ship, and she's told that everybody is fine. Oh, everybody's fine. Oh, it was all, you were always fine. You were always safe. You were always safe. I mean, the trauma. Oh my God. So she starts to get some answers. Daniel and Franny were actors. They were trained in like every kind of first response emergency protocol that there could be. So they were like that's why they knew how to like warm her back up correctly. And it was really only Walter and Kaz that were playing. So Smith and Kaz that were actually playing. All the people are okay. The people start to walk up to her on the deck, and it's, the guy that looked like the bursar and one of the dead bodies that had a big slash. It was all fake. They had stuffed food into the fake bodies underneath so that the rats and the dogs would go after it. So that really isn't a pile of bodies. Franny's fine. Daniel's fine. Smith is fine. All the people are okay. Her family's okay. I mean, one of the first things she says when she gets out of the boat is like, is my family okay? They really are. They're okay. Everyone's really safe. They get her off the ship, and they get her to a suite at the Hilton. I think a suite at the Hilton, or a suite at someplace super fancy. She refuses all interviews. She is like Beatles famous. I mean, people they all want to talk to her. They all want to interview her. She says, absolutely not. Get the you-know-what away from me. And she lays down and she sleeps for 14 hours. She's great. I'm really glad. I'm sure she drank a lot of water, too. After the 14 hours, she gets a knock on her door, and it's Pete. And he wraps her in a hug, and she just starts hitting him, the way that girls do, that, I'm sure that's what it was. And she's just like, you left me. How could you leave me? I don't understand. How could you leave me? And he's like, no, you don't understand. Like, he's like, the alarms went off and you wouldn't wake up. It was so horrifying. I didn't know what to do. And I opened the door to see like what was happening. And I just got carried along with like the mass of people, and I couldn't get back to you, and I tried so hard, and I kept thinking we're going to be reunited, at whatever point, when we all end up disembarking and we'll find each other, but then you weren't there. You were never there, and then all of a sudden you were in this show. And he's like, but he definitely, part of him is like, you were really great. You were so strong. You're so fabulous. And she's like, I mean, she's so broken. And she's still, angry or whatever, but he explains to her that she really was safe the whole time. There was actually, there were all sorts of safety mechanisms when she was on the ladder. There were all sorts of safety mechanisms when she was in the water. There was like all sorts of stuff. So like she actually would have been fine. And she's like, I don't believe it. And that was just awful. And I never would have consented. And it's this whole thing. And I could probably teach a semester long class just on like the ethics of this contest. And all the discussions that they have about it, and whether, what's okay and what's not. There's a lot. Anyway, so we have reached the conclusion of the book. So if you don't want to know the very, 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 very end, this is the time to shut off the description. Okay, so Pete says to her, I hear you want to go home. And she's like, yes, like a week ago, I want to go home. I just want to go home, because they're in New York. They made it to New York. So he says, you know, I booked us on a flight this afternoon. I can change it if you don't want it. And she's like, no, 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 please. And of course they have like access to more money than God. So they get like they're on a huge plane that has those fancy like first class pod things. And she's like, and she didn't realize how fancy it could be on a plane. And she gets up to go to the bathroom and she's like, you know, the bathroom is even fancy. I mean, it's not that it's big, like it's not spacious. We're still on a plane, but it's fancier than like, you know, the people who are sitting in coach and what have you. And she comes out of the bathroom and there's nobody on the plane. It's empty. And that's how it ends, which is awesome. I mean, it's so hard to end books, and I love that as the end. I think that to me, like the minute I read it, I was like, oh, this is her. She fell asleep. She fell asleep on the plane, and this is going to be her go-to like nightmare. It just is like that. She's going to wake up and nobody's going to be anywhere. Which this woman is going to have the worst time sleeping for the rest of her life, which is terrible. I love sleep. Sleep is awesome. So this book was nutty. It was so nutty. Like, I mean, one minute you're like, how could they leave them on a boat, on a cruise ship? And the next minute it's like, oh, they're making them be on a reality show? I mean, at least that means they're safe because, you know, there's regulations and stuff, but wait a minute, it's on the dark web. There's no regulations on the dark web. Oh my God, they really are dying. They're never going to make it out. They're all going to die. Like, only to find out that it was, you know. Now, you can interpret the end as, you know, really there's nobody on the plane with her and it's a whole nother adventure. But, you know, to me, she probably just fell asleep and this is her go-to nightmare. Is my take on it. But it was fun. It was fun to read. It did a lot of, to me, I was like, wait, what? You know, and it was fun. That was The Last One by Will Dean. And I thought it was neat because when I first started reading it and I was like, oh, she's the last one on the ship. And then I was like, oh, she's not the last one on the ship. There's all these other people there. And then I realized she's the last one standing for, you know, the prize. So I thought that was neat, the way that sort of even the title, the meaning of the title changed as like the story twisted and turned, and it was neat. Anyway, I enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed this. If you could just do me a favor and be nice to each other out there, you know, the world's a little rough right now, so we need to take care of each other and be nice to yourself, okay? Be nice to yourself. And I'll catch you next time. Bye.